Our people were the first people of this area. We've probably been here more than 10,000 years.
My family came to the valley approximately 1939, and so I was born and raised here.
The Skagit becomes part of you. The river flowing and eddying is like blood coursing through my veins.
There's one thing everybody in the Skagit Valley agrees on.
It's a good place to live. The air is clean, and you can grow a garden, and your children can walk down the street without a lot of fear.
It's just nice. I like the feel when you come down off of Conway Hill and you look at those fields.
This is 125 years since my great-grandparents first came to the valley, and we're still stewards of the land. We still participate in the land, and I think it's a real family tradition that we don't really necessarily own the land and control it, but that we're here with nature, and if we take good care of things, it will take good care of us.
But times are changing. Timber and fish, once so plentiful, are nearly gone. Housing tracts are replacing farms. Only an hour from metropolitan Seattle, Skagit County's population may double in the next 20 years. With growth threatening their quality of life, people from upriver and down, Indians and non-Indians, are joining a dialogue about the valley's future.
I'm seeing development, housing, expanding east of Cedar Valley now. That's kind of unique.
Our way of life is changing in a way that's really going to be detrimental to us, and it'll help us, and it'll be a tremendous asset to the whole valley as a whole if we work together at it. And we've got to be able to work together at this, or it's not going to work.
There's only a finite amount of land and a finite amount of water. As more and more people come and they want to live in a beautiful spot, so they live on the creek, they cut down the trees so they can see that creek. We get a flood, they have to protect their property. They change the course of that creek. They withdraw more water because they want to have green lawns instead of brown lawns. There's more and more of those impacts that occur.
And we're not able to go and partake of the things that we used to do, clam digging, shellfish, put oysters out there because of the pollution that's going down into our watershed.
Changes brought by rapid growth are not new to the Indian people of the area, who saw their entire world transformed after the arrival of white settlers just over 100 years ago.
The area was diked and drained. Many of the trees were cut down. Mining began, settlement began, and commerce, and of course an influx of people with values quite different from the people that had been there for a very long period of time.
The Indian pronunciation for us is Saukville, river people. That's who we are, river people. In my grandfather's time or before, there were plenty of deer, plenty of elk, plenty of bear, plenty of fish. And that lifestyle that existed then cannot exist today.
In the 50s, 2 or 3 of us got together at 8 o'clock in the morning, went down to the river and hooked a salmon and came back and we barbecued it. And you never thought of buying it or going down and catching one in advance and freezing it because there were plenty of salmon in the river.
There are mounting pressures in the Skagit Valley. Declining fish runs, diminishing water quality, all sorts of pressures that come with expanding population. And certainly within the county and within the 3 tribes, a growing recognition that they needed to come together to work things out collectively.
There are good reasons for cooperation between Indian and non-Indian governments, but there's also a history of distrust to overcome. Over the years, Indians and non-Indians have fought over diminishing resources rather than work together to save them.
The county did not recognize the tribes. They knew we were here, but because of one being under the federal government and the other under the state, we were separated.
I guess when I came into office, one of the things that sort of shocked me was the fact that both the local tribes and the local governments were spending so much effort on fighting amongst themselves on areas they really had general agreement on. Everybody wants to preserve their resource.
There's a tremendous amount of commonality, so much so that we thought we ought to be able to come up with the means of reaching those goals and meeting those common goals.
To move this process along, 18 Indian and non-Indian leaders from the valley took part in a fellowship circle convened by the Northwest Renewable Resources Center.
The intent of the fellowship circle is to bring people who normally don't mix and mingle together in a comfortable setting to get to know each other better. And it's a very simple concept. It's if you bring people together to talk about common problems, solutions will emerge, relationships will develop.
I was pretty excited, and I had never really dealt with a tribal entity before, and I was kind of concerned about making faux pas or not using going through the appropriate channels. So I kind of was looking forward to the fellowship circle as a way of getting to know what the right thing to do was, and also just getting to know the people on a more interpersonal level.
I guess for me, reading the letter, it was, well, we're going to sit down and we're going to talk about laws, regulations, rules, these kinds of things. And in the actuality, we were doing things like opening the circle with Indian blessings, passing artifacts around, talking about people's different experiences in the valley. I think it came more from the heart than the head.
I'm used to staff meetings where you pin people down and say, are you going to do it or not? This was a more personalized approach to community efforts. In other words, how can I understand this person better so that he and I both can achieve our objectives?
Because when you bring understanding to each other, it broadens our perspective on our needs, not only just for ourselves, but the people around the whole region. Everybody has their own different special need, within their own living environment. And that should be honored and respected.
On 4 separate days, over a 6-month period, participants came to Fort Casey on Whidbey Island, where they learned about one another and the history of the valley. Through structured and informal activities, they began to build trust and understanding.
With Nick being the planning director for the Swinomish tribe and myself being the planning director for Skagit County, that not only did we get an insight in each other, but also insight in the leadership in which we have to respond to. One of our county commissioners participated in the circle, and several of his leaders also participated.
The fellowship circles where everybody got a chance to talk a little bit were marvelous icebreakers, you might say, and we really got to know each other, and then we focused on some issues and did a lot of brainstorming, and I came away with that with a very, very good feeling and a lot more knowledge of the culture of the Native Americans and information about 3 tribes that were there.
We look at the animals as our guardian spirits. As Christians, to look at the angels as their guardians. The Christians have their angels. We have our angels, and those are the eagles, and those are the wolves, and those are the killer whales, and all the other creatures that live upon this land. We look at them as little angels.
You don't just go and break a limb, even a leaf. That was forbidden, because that contributes back to life itself. Children had just designated areas to play. They had designated areas where they could go swimming. That provided life to the birds, it provided life to the insects. All these little things contributed to one another. This is what the Indians see.
Participants discovered a shared love for the Skagit Valley that transcends cultural differences.
Winter can be harsh, but you got to look at the good things that happens in the winter.
And when the snow's coming down, that tells me that we're going to have water in the summertime. By getting to know you, I found that I can trust you, and I believe you trust me.
The way I like to describe that is respect.
Agreed.
and you work that respect.
This is called a shaker cat's head basket because it's shaped with the face of the cat in the front.
Professional relationships improved once people found they had common interests.
Ears. So I wanted to give that to you. Now when I come into a meeting, I will go over and sit beside you, and we'll sit together rather than with a barrier between us, because we've got so much to talk about.
Yeah. We're the inside of that circle, all of us that were getting together. And what we're trying to do now is just continue that spiral. Larger
and join
and larger,
more
and larger.
grasses.
Yeah.
Include more people.
Yeah.
Ultimately, what we want to do is reach out and involve everybody in this new understanding. Creating a community, a society within the region that understands the differences, the plurality, if you will, between the different groups in the society.
Based on their experiences in the fellowship circle, participants agreed to reach out to involve others in the valley. This new spirit of cooperation is already bringing results.
Swinomish Indian people, from my experience, don't really like a lot of paper. They like to look you in the eye, they like to shake your hand, and they'll make a deal. And they'll live up to it. So my hesitancy about bringing up a formal, written, published resolution was that maybe that wasn't consistent with the way the Swinomish people like to do their business. But then I found that there was a sensitivity on the other side, that they're aware of how the non-Indian community works.
Through the efforts of all of us trying to work together, we have something hanging on our wall that really makes us proud. And they recognized it, otherwise they wouldn't have written it. A resolution coming from the town of LaConner, recognizing our sovereignty.
1993, 1994 is probably one of the most important periods of time in local government because of the required intergovernmental relationships, primarily through Growth Management Act. But utilizing those relationships that we developed during the circle easily have transcended into those working relationships that were needed with the cities and with the tribe during this very important and critical period of planning.
I think the message is filtered down to the county employees that there's a benefit to try to work through these things, and that we're not goblins out there that are just there trying to stop all change in the county, but that we have something to offer and something to add, and that I think that's been translated in the relationships that we have.
The green areas would be the tribal trust lands, and the yellow areas would be all the...
Data gathered by one government, such as the mapping of resources and land use patterns by the Swinomish, is being made available to others.
On the reservation, but allows us to start sharing information regionally with Skagit County and the state of Washington and bring together a regional database for regional planning.
LaConner Town Hall.
We have a sewer system that we share. We want that to go forward and quit polluting the Skagit Bay. We have a channel out here that we share. We want to get that going, the cleanup of the Swinomish Channel. And thirdly, we have this economic base here that we both share.
While people are hopeful that the new understanding sparked by the Fellowship Circle will encourage more cooperation in the future, everyone knows the real work has just begun.
We haven't gotten to a critical decision point where that hard decision needs to get made between protecting the tribe's resources or natural resources and dealing with the strictly economic or politically powerful side of an issue.
There's, a couple personalities that have already changed, and that was one of my biggest concerns. It was nice to meet these people, get to know them, feel, a sense of friendship and camaraderie with them, yet we have to do something to move beyond that point, and as people change, we don't want all this work to just have gone for naught.
See, when I go to a meeting that's already set agenda similar to the Robert's Rules of Order, I know that either I'm going to have nothing to say, or what I'm going to have to say is going to mean nothing. What we've done here is going to last forever. And if we can bring that together again and keep bringing it together again in the future, that understanding is going to broaden.
Clearly, the dialogue about the future of the Skagit Valley needs to expand beyond those who took part in the fellowship circle. Sustaining resources and quality of life as the population grows won't be easy.
We're not there yet. How long it's going to take us to get to a point where everybody's going to know what we're doing, it's going to take a while. But at least we're at the starting gate.
It's kind of difficult for me to get involved into some economic development that'll destroy the Mother Earth and its creation here. And yet at the same time, I need to get into it. How can I do it? I can't do it alone. It's going to have to take help of the neighborhood.
There's more to this than just us versus them. It's process. It's not a dictum that says, thou shalt do this. This is the logical course. No, it says, we're going to work this out together. That's a breakthrough in Skagit County.
Faint heart wins no fair maiden. It's one of those things where at some point you have to have a leap of faith and say, you know, maybe this is the time. It really is an amazing place. When you can go from the ocean to the mountains and the valleys and the tulips, and it really is unique.